Hi, this is a lesson on circles in coordinate geometry. We've actually talked about circles before in class, so it's kind of a little review and actually going a little bit more in depth than we did last time. So first of all, there's an investigation, and they say to draw a circle and label its center HK and choose a point on the circle and label it XY. And then they tell you to use the distance formula to write an equation for the distance from the center to that point. So let's see what happens. Here is an XY axis. I'll choose a center of a circle over here, and I'll say, there's my circle around that center. So that center, I'll call it C for center, and its coordinates are H, K. Then I'll choose a point on the circle, I'll call it P, and I will call its coordinates XY because I don't know what they are. I want to find the distance between those. Now, not only is that the distance between those 2 points, but it's also the radius, so I'll call it R. So what we're going to use is the distance formula. Remember the distance formula from a couple of lessons ago? It is, if you have a point A, B, a point A and a point B, with A being x sub 1, y sub 1, and B being x sub 2, y sub 2, then the distance between them is x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to say we're finding the radius, and it is the square root of, okay, I'll choose P as my second point, so I would have x minus the x of point C, which is h squared, plus, and then the y value of P would be y, minus the y value of C, which would be k squared. And that is the radius. Now, in the investigation, they tell me to square both sides. So when I square both sides, the radius squared is equal to, the square gets rid of the big square root, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. And if some of you remember, that is the equation of a line. So if I switch it around, which is where they usually put this, you have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared when the center is at hk and the radius is my r value. So now, they said, what if I have a circle that has a center at 1, -2, and a radius of 8? Okay, x minus the x of the center plus y minus the y of the center, so it would be -2, y minus a -2 would be y plus 2 here. And that's a squared, and then that's equal to the radius squared. So all I'm doing is putting in the x's here, so 0 and 2, and the radius gets squared over here. So there's a bunch more examples there for you to work on. So this is the conjecture for the conjecture list. The equation of a circle, if the center is at hk and the radius is r, then the equation of the circle is, whoops, I went through there, I wasn't thinking, didn't look ahead, do an eraser, there you go. So that is the equation for circle conjecture. So you can put that on your conjecture list. Okay, here's an example. Write an equation for the circle with center at 5, 4 and radius of 7. So here's my solution. I'm going to use the equation. Whoops, made it too big there. Okay, this 5 is my h, because it's the x of the center, and the y of the center is my k value, so that's 4. And the radius is 7, so r is equal to 7. So now I'm going to substitute those in. So h becomes a 5, and k becomes a 4, and r becomes a 7, and then that's the equation of the circle. They didn't go any further. I guess they could have gone one step further and made this be a 49, but they didn't. Okay, next example. The equation defines a circle. What are the coordinates of the center and the radius of the circle? This is a hard one. This is for A+ people here. So if you're an A+ person, listen to this, which you all are. In order to find the center and the radius, you must rewrite the equation as the sum of two perfect squares, that x minus h squared and the y minus k squared. And it has to equal the radius squared. In order to do this, we must complete the square. So that's why, once upon a time recently, we did a lesson on how to complete the square. So here's what they do first. They say that's the original equation. Okay, now, they're going to separate. They're going to take this x stuff and move it over, and we're going to add a number here. They're going to leave this y stuff. They're going to put it together, and then there's going to be a number there. And then here's the 20 that's originally there, and we're going to add some kind of numbers there. Okay, so how do we do this? To complete the square, we're going to say here is x squared minus 4x. Half of a negative 4 is a negative 2. Remember, you take the number in front of x and take half of it, and then you square that. So a negative 2 squared. So they then added that to the other side. Okay, then you look at the y stuff. To complete the square, you look at the number in front of y, which is 2. Take half of it, that's 1, and square it. So here's that 1 squared. If I add that onto the left side, I got to add that onto the right side. And now the next step says to factor this, it's going to factor into an x minus a negative 2 squared. And all of this is going to factor into y plus 1 with a square in it. And then this combines to be 20 plus 4 plus 1, which is a 25. So the equation of the circle is shown there. The center is at positive 2, negative 1. And the radius, if that's the radius squared of 25, the radius is 5. Here's an extra example. Find 3 points that lie on the circle defined by this equation. So this is what I said. Try to find some x and y values that would make this parenthesis, one of these parentheses, be equal to 0. And then once I have one of these parentheses equal to 0, then I can work with the other parenthesis. So for instance, what if I let x equal 4? If I put a 4 in there, I'd have 4 minus 4 squared, which is a 0. So that's going to go away. And I'm going to be left with y plus 1 squared is equal to 16. If I square root both sides to get rid of this square, I'll get y minus 1. And if I square root this side, I'm going to get a positive or negative square root of 16, which is a positive negative 4. So therefore, y, if I add 1 to it, to get y minus 1 to be a y, I add 1 to this side. I also have to add a 1 onto this side. I get 1 plus or minus 4. So 1 plus 4 or 1 minus 4. So therefore, y would be 5 or a negative 3. So they say find 3 points. I found 2. 4, 5. When I put in an x of 4, I got a y of 5. Or when I put in an x of 4, I got a y of a negative 3. And now I'll concentrate on this, the y parenthesis. If I let y equal 1 in here, that parenthesis is going to drop out. And then I'll have x minus 4 squared is equal to 16. Take the square root of both sides. So I get a positive negative square root of 16, which is a positive or negative 4. And then add 4 to this side. It becomes an x in the next step. Add a 4 onto this side. I get 4 plus 4 or 4 minus 4. So x is 8 or 0. So when I had an x of 8, I had a y of 1. When I had an x of 0, I had a y of 1. So they wanted 3 points. I gave them 4 points. And this is the last problem, right? The equation of the circle that has a center of 2, 3 that passes through the point, negative 1, 1. The other ones, they give me the center and the radius. So this is more difficult. Okay, so first of all, I just drew a picture of it, just to see what it looks like. Okay, then I said I'm going to use the equation of the distance to figure out what this radius is here. So I said the radius is equal to, and I said the x values that I'm going to subtract are 2 minus negative 1. And the y values, that's going to be in a parenthesis square. And then the y values are going to be 3 minus 1 in a parenthesis squared. So this is going to become a 3, and this is going to become a 2. So I'm going to have 3 squared and 2 squared. 3 squared is 9. 2 squared is 4. That's the square root of 13. So the radius is the square root of 13. So that means that r is equal to the square root of 13. Okay, so then what else do I know? The center is at 2, 3. So I wrote that over here. That means that h is 2 and k is 3. So the equation of a circle, here's the general form for the equation. And now I put in the center. So it would be x minus the h value, which is 2, and y minus the k value, which is 3. And then the radius, which is the square root of 13 with a square in it. And then I just went one step further and squared the square root of 13 to become just 13. So there is my grand finale answer. So that is a little review, going a little bit deeper than we did last time, though, into equations of circles.